Okay, I'm sitting in my garden and it's springtime, and I'm enjoying a lovely glass of Grüne Veltliner, Austrian wine, white wine, as you can see. And I've discovered this is my favorite wine, and it's similar to some other sort of green, so-called green wines. I mean, in Spain and Portugal, you have verdejo, which means green, right? And the flavor is similar, and they all have a kind of they prickle on your tongue a little bit. You can see little bubbles when you open the bottle, when you pour out the glass. So they are almost bubbling, you know. It's just tiny, but it's enough that you feel it on your tongue, which is lovely. And they have this lovely lemony, I would say, taste. I don't know if the bottle says what I'm supposed to be able to taste. Let me see if there's any instructions. The wine is fruity and pleasantly spicy or herbal, kruidig. That means spicy, actually, but I mean think of like herbs. Kruidig. Kraut is a herb. The translation would be spicy, but it's like spiciness of thyme, rosemary, and those kind of things. Nuances of citrus and lime. Take care of a verwikkende. Well, that means I don't know what that means. Sort of waking up level of acidity. Grüne Veltliner, the visiting card of the Austrian wine industry, comes from the mild, cool climate of Lower Austria. Yeah, I've been there long ago, as a teenager actually. So I know Lower Austria. I didn't got to know the wine there, but I know the climate and the feeling of the place. And the thing about this wine is, I feel you can feel the soil it grows on. You can feel and taste the silica. I think it's silica because it reminds me of flints. I spent a large part of my childhood on the Chiltern Hills. You could say also in the Chiltern Hills, but actually on top of the Chiltern Hills. There's a tiny place called Freeth, not very far from Marlow, and not terribly far from Henley. Such places, but I know Marlow and Marlow on Thames, Henley on Thames. They were far down, deep down in the valley, and I don't know how many meters higher we were up on the top of the well, actually on a sort of a plateau part, but a plateau with a really heavy clay. Orange clay actually, but there were huge flint stones embedded in it. And if you dig the garden and you strike a flint with your spade, you see sparks, and you smell the silica. Flint is silica, silicon dioxide, silica. Right, now, now the birds singing here. I heard a great tit making a lot of noise a moment ago, rather boring, repetitive, but okay. It's spring, the birds are singing, and there was a woodpecker hammering away a little while ago, which they do as part of their marking out territory and advertising their presence, part of a pair formation or reformation. I don't know if they have the same mate every year or not, but they have the same location every year. And it's the location which counts, which is the place to lay the eggs and get the food, right? Which is what it's all about. Well, the anemones are out, and in our garden, I love how they come out in the sun and close up when it just gets a little bit cloudy even. And they want to be brilliant white and with their aroma attracting the insects, which are part of their reproductive cycle. And we have March violets. I don't know if they're called March violets in England, but they're little violets, beautiful purple color. We have a lot of marsh violets, and some daffodils I can see. And outside, in the front garden, we have some stunningly beautiful hellebores. I don't know what else you call them in English, hellebores. They're rather odd flowers, odd plants indeed, which flower in midwinter, right? But they're doing fantastically, flowering fantastically now towards the end of March. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences in Liverpool. Today is Saturday lunchtime, and I travelled back on Tuesday. Interesting journey. It was nicely punctuated by a visit, not some visits, dropping off at is it called Wetherspoons? Awful pub, awful chain of pubs, awful owner. They're all the same. But I discovered that Wetherspoons has a Green King Abbot Ale on tap. And I so love that beer, and it takes me back to my time in Cambridge as a student, where I lived in a small village just outside Cambridge. I forget what the name is at the moment. And I lived there in a really old, thatched cottage, and the floors were tilting at all angles, and the ceilings were low with beams, and so on and so forth. And just down the street, there was a lovely pub. I forgot what it was called, but it was a Green King pub with Abbot Ale, and that's where me and my mates tended to end up every evening, naturally, after doing our cooking and eating our meal. One of us was a vet, and he actually was quite a master cook, and one of the things he did was get hold of a hare and hang it up in our bicycle shed for a month, so that all the blood dripped into a bag around his head, which was useful for making the gravy, and the meat becomes, as it were, ripe, and made fantastic, hare stew or whatever you call it for us. And my other sort of housemate was a philosopher who's now professor of philosophy up in Durham, who turned out to be gay. And sort of revealed that at some point while we were all three of us living there together. It was, anyway, like an interesting time. Of course, these are memorable times when you have left home at last, and you're discovering the world, and you're discovering people who are kind of your soulmates from totally different backgrounds, and all kinds of characters and all kinds of people. And actually, I wanted to say this is one of the wonderful things about the fight to get Lucy Letby a fair retrial, or just simply have her convictions quashed straight out. That would be fine by me. But then after that, there should be an inquiry, of course, to explain how she got convicted, falsely convicted of crimes which didn't happen, though plenty of ghastly medical errors were made, especially in particular by the senior consultants where she worked, who also were the ones who actually called in the police and masterminded, together with their old mate Dowie Evans. He was a fellow paediatrician of Breary and Jairam and of the other guys and ladies there, Gibbs and Son, and you see his name and their names on petitions to exonerate disgraced paediatricians, because above all, the Brotherhood of Paediatricians needs to keep its status, the respect it gets from people, and obviously the salaries which they get. And every paediatrician who ever did anything wrong has to be pardoned and rehabilitated, despite how horrible it was. And of course, Sir Roy Meadow, who sent lots of innocent women to jail for murdering their babies through inventing Munchausen by proxy syndrome, which also was used against Lucy and used against, like every nurse killer, it comes up. So he lives on his awful heritage is unfortunately alive and kicking in the minds of people like him, such as Breary, Dyer and Evans. Yeah, so you will find their names clustered together in the list of signatures of prominent paediatricians calling for Roy Meadow to be allowed to practice again, because of course the fact that he actually totally destroyed the lives of so many innocent women in court cases does not actually affect his ability to earn money from treating patients, right? And that was the argument, and that argument was accepted, and Meadow was reinstated as got his license back, and that's a scandal in itself, of course, and it's all part of the same scandal. Yeah, what was I saying? I wanted to talk about the good thing about this the Letby catastrophe. The Letby scandal, the Letby affair, because it's going to reverberate on for quite a while after she's exonerated, because then the truth will come further out, and the true extent of the scandal affecting the NHS, the judiciary, the police, the media who joined the witch hunt, who stoked the anti-witch fury, the passion of all those peasants, but not just peasants, also the senior people. Yeah, but what was the good thing has been meeting like-minded people from so many different walks of life, and getting to know them through conversations on social media, and in particular from YouTube. And for instance, I've made a YouTube video with Mark Jürgen Mays. He has some German ancestry. Mark Mays, with Carl Perkins, another one. Okay, now these people are completely different from me, very different background, they're totally different from each other, completely different style, but we have so much in common. Of course, what we have in common is fury at an innocent person being thrown away in a dark cell to rot, right? The system hopes she'll suicide herself, and otherwise one of her colleagues will finish her off or whatever, or she'll just die of sorrow, and like nearly happened to Lucy Letby, who had a stroke in her jail one night, lay on the cold floor for 12 hours or something. The guards were she was on suicide watch. The guards were supposed to look in every 1 hour. Don't know if they looked in or not, but nobody did look in. I mean, nobody did anything. Don't know if they did look in or not. That would be a scandal if they had looked in and done nothing as well. But she was meant to die, really. You put people into jail for life because you have expelled them from society. You don't want to ever see them again, and you don't want to hear from them again. They're not allowed to speak anymore. They're silenced. Their memory is the memory which has been created of them, the lie, that can live on. That becomes a myth. Bear Valid, so on and so on. Shipman. These are now sort of icons. These are evil figures of the past. You can put them next to Hitler and whoever else you think are the most evil persons who've ever lived. These people are there too. They're part of the mythology of evil, and everybody certainly in the British Health Service knows all about Allitt and Shipman and how evil they were, and every manager in the NHS knows that if they let another one of their ilk to operate on their watch, and they are too late to stop them, and they don't stop them rapidly, don't notice fast enough, then they will be in for big trouble. And therefore, since these cases, all NHS managers are on the lookout for serial killers in healthcare. And the result is that a whole cohort of further victims turned up over the years. Ben Geen, Colin Norris, Victorino Chua. They're all odd people. Victorino Chua was a Filipino, not really at home in England, but Colin Norris was over the top gay. Ben Geen was basically learning to be an army nurse, so he was like a gung-ho army type, and a guy, a completely opposite sort of guy to Colin Norris, of course, but they were both, and Victorino Chua too, noticeable outsiders, outliers, extreme cases, and their characters worried some of their colleagues. We know that Lucy Letby was worried one of her nursing colleagues, and she thought that was her best friend among her colleague nurses. But that was the person who told matron that she was terribly worried when baby Amber had died, because Lucia had been there, and she had these bad feelings about Lucia. And of course, Lucia had been confiding, during the long hours of night shifts and so on, about her colourful, I could say, adolescence, childhood and youth, during part of which she'd actually been a prostitute. I mean, she'd been the tool of a lover boy person, and her family was desperate for money, and so she was getting some money to help feed her mother and brother and sister in Vancouver, actually. And she had managed to extract herself from this awful background, this traumatic, and she came from a sort of low-class background anyway, and at some point she was working as a cleaning lady in The Hague, and the lady whose house she cleaned suggested she become a nurse. They got to know each other. They liked each other. That was a lady called Carol. I forget her surname. Edrich. A creative person into dance and stuff. And I know Carol. Carol was really nice, and she saw that Lucia had amazing capacities, and shouldn't spend the rest of her life being a cleaning lady. And convinced her she could go into nursing, of all things. And so Lucia did. And this led to Lucia's downfall. So Carol was always so sorry about that. Lucy Letby was one of her fellow nurses who called her Nurse Death first, and Breary heard that. In May or June of 2015, the first year, like 3, 4 or 5 months into the 18 months when Lucy was, full-time, fully qualified nurse at Countess of Chester, there was a cluster of unexpected deaths, 3 in a row in June, I think, mid-June. Right, and probably Breary or Jairam said, okay, now we've had our annual 3 already, and it's only June. And then immediately, beginning of July, there was a 4th, right? And immediately, people were thinking of a killer nurse. First the nurses, and then the doctors, right? First Breary, and then he infected the minds of his colleagues. Very convenient hypothesis, because there was an awful lot going wrong, as things do in NHS hospitals. I mean, terrible things are going wrong all the time. And the unit was receiving patients of a degree of acuity, a degree of prematurity with all kinds of complications, including twins and triplets who should never, ever, ever have been at that hospital. They needed, to give them any chance, give any of the three any chance of survival, they needed to be at a level 3 unit in Liverpool, and so for some whatever reason they somehow got dumped in Chester, and these babies are so vulnerable and so sick they could not at all be cared for properly. I mean, they didn't have a chance. They could be cared for lovingly and probably die, which is what they did. The nurses lovingly did their best, and the doctors were hardly ever there, and they died one by one. I can't remember exactly which ones died and which ones didn't right now. Similarly, some of those twins, I mean, there's one of the babies who was a twin, but the other it's that baby's identical twin sibling had actually already died in the uterus, and I'm not sure if it had been aborted or it died normally. But those were identical twins, extremely premature, and sharing a placenta, which means that they at least one of them was not getting enough blood, and that their blood's circulations were mixed up together in a terrible way, which led to the demise of one of them before it was born. And those babies should never have been in Chester. And the RCPCH investigation in the second half of the beginning of second half of the next year, 2016, they confirmed what everybody really should have known. It was a grotty level 1 unit, effectively. It was formerly on paper level 2, but the staffing, the skills of the doctors, the number of nurses was typical for a level 1 unit. And indeed, I suppose beginning of July 2016, when Lucy was taken off the unit and the death stopped happening abruptly, management degraded the unit to level 1. And the RCPCH confirmed that it should have been a level 1. Management also reduced the number of cots. Okay, became level 1, which meant it was no longer receiving babies of that degree of needing the degree of intensive care which they had been having the last 18 months. I mean, one of the amazing things which, thanks to Thirlwall, is now absolutely clear, is that in the middle of that 18 months, there's there's about 6 months when Lucy apparently didn't kill any baby at all, but still there were 10 deaths, or was it 8? I'm not quite sure. Or maybe there were 8 deaths in the hospital and 2 deaths of babies who left the hospital and died shortly later outside where they should have been all the time. So in a half a year, you basically had 10 deaths, and the doctors after that had gone to the police and said, we usually only have 3 deaths a year, and we don't understand it. It's incredible. We have this enormous number of deaths. Well, I mean, Christ, let me say Christ. I'm thinking of other words, expletives. Beep. But Breary Jairam must have known that they were having lots and lots of deaths of babies who they couldn't care for and shouldn't have cared for. They must have known that. If they didn't know that, then they are so phenomenally dumb and incompetent. It's criminal. I mean, that's criminal incompetence if they didn't know. And I'm sure they did know, so it is criminal. It's criminal. They lied I call it a lie. They lied to the police. Normally we only have 3 deaths a year. Well, indeed, normally they only had 3 deaths a year, but normally they didn't have the patients they were having, which they bloody well knew they were having. They bloody well knew what patients they were having. And many of them died, and whether or not Lucy cared for them at some point or not is pretty irrelevant. I mean, she cared for every baby who was in there for a while, probably because she was there a lot of the time. So she was there in the notes of like all those babies who died, including the ones who obviously died in a completely natural way. The cases which old Dowie lay aside, right? You could immediately see, these congenital malformations or this, that, or the other. These were natural deaths, and he put them aside straight away. And what was left in his stack of medical notes was the so-called suspicious events, which Breary had selected himself, which he'd been logging in his drawer of doom since mid-2016. Since mid-2016, he was keeping a list of events which sort of disturbed him, where he was too thick to understand what had happened, and Lucy was there, where Lucy was present. It was his confirmation bias right at the beginning. He had got the viral idea of a killer nurse in his head, and he was doing his private, secret investigation and keeping track of all the events at which, if she were a killer, she might have tried to kill or had killed a baby. And his list became the kernel of the list of the spreadsheet, with the 25 events where Lucy was present. And they're suspicious events. They're suspicious events because Lucy was present, because Breary suspected Lucy for a long time, and so he collected them. They were suspicious events because Lucy was present in the first place. They became suspicious events even more. Well, of course, there are so many events which are unexpected at the moment they happen. If you're on intensive care, and if you are so-called stable, which just means your heartbeat today is the same as what it was yesterday. That's what it means. It means that one cannot see at this moment dramatic changes happening. But of course, changes are happening inside, but you don't see them, especially if there are not enough nurses to be having one-on-one care, right? And especially if the consultants only deign to drop by just occasionally, right? You remember, 2 ward rounds a week when it should have been 2 per day. So, and not enough nurses. Those babies needed one-on-one nursing. There should have been as many nurses there as babies in the unit. Well, maybe not all of the babies were in such a serious case, but many were as we now see from the list of deaths, which are natural deaths. Many were going to die because they were going to die anyway, but their only chance of not dying would have been in one of the big hospitals in Liverpool, in a level 3 unit. But what I was wanting to say was, really what I wanted to talk about now was how heartwarming it was to meet some of my fellow YouTubers, and other people who fellow members of various app groups, Messenger, WhatsApp, X, all the various groups there are, and meet people I've been sort of chatting with now about this case for a long time, 1.5 years, maybe a very long time in some cases, and only since recently in others. And you get to have a feeling for people's characters, and you get to hear little bits of snippets of their ordinary life in some of these groups and so on. So you get to feel you know these people, and some of them you get to feel some of them you feel these are like soulmates. I have that feeling in particular with Mark Mace, and it's mutual apparently, So God knows what the trolls will make. Well, I do know what the trolls will make of us. But I mean, we embraced like long lost brothers when we met in the life. We were both so thrilled and excited to meet at last. 'Cause, we both greatly admire each other, and I admire what he's doing, and he admires what I'm doing. And I think what he's doing is more remarkable than what I'm doing, because he's just an ordinary guy from Somerset, down from Somerset, and he's a musician and a poet. And his YouTube films have been so important, but not just his YouTube videos. He has dug up information through freedom of information requests and the like, and through questioning and searching on the internet. Okay, I mean, so he's an internet sleuth, a good one, a brilliant one, who has turned up really crucial, critical data. And of course, even more of things he's been turned up are being confirmed all the time have been being confirmed by Thirlwell. Right, so we were so happy to meet in the flesh. We've done one YouTube video together. I've also done a YouTube video with Carl Perkins together. So lovely to meet him in real life too. And he is just like what he is. And Mark Mays is just like what he is. These people, the people who are going 100% for Lucy are so authentic. They are what they are. They're not pretending to be something different from what they are. I mean, I don't do that either. It's the only effective way. You have to be yourself, not pretend to be something you're not. And we are all absolutely sincere. And of course, we may sometimes be misled by false facts, and there can be some of the stories which go around turn out not to be true or whatever, or some of the guesses one can make turn out not to be correct after all. Who knows? Many things we don't know, many things we'll never know. So okay, we all make mistakes, like everybody makes mistakes, including top consultants at NHS hospitals. It was, anyway, so that was one lovely thing, to meet the people I sort of already know. I feel I already know in the flesh, and they were just as I know they are, and in some case, and I feel a very strong affinity with all of them, and an extremely strong affinity with some of them. It's just kindred spirits is the phrase I use, even though we're very different and have very different backgrounds and many different interests and so on and so forth. Yes. Then there were more people I met, and like there was a lady who came to the meeting with I think with 3 red envelopes, and there was one with a card in them, and I think there were 3, because there was one for me, and I think Mark and Carl also got one. And inside the envelope was a beautiful card and a little note, and expressing like heartfelt thanks for what we have been doing. At least, I mean, I suppose she had the similar thanks to the others, and that was so heartwarming. I got filmed by Anouk Curry later reading it, actually, and it brought tears to my life. So thank you, lady with the red envelope. Yeah, okay. It's so wonderful to find out that one's work is appreciated, obviously, and saying it in such a beautiful way, heartfelt way, is deeply moving. Brought tears to my eyes, actually. Okay, and then there were some odd things, of course. A lady, I think it was a lady in a green coat, and I think I know who it was, rushed past me in the crowd. I mean, walked very fast past me, clearly avoiding everybody's faces and not letting her face be seen. And she said, "Hello, Dickie," I think. Okay, trolls like to call me Dickie because it used to make me angry, because people call me Richard. But I've got used to it, you know. So any trolls out there, you can call me Dick if you want to. You can call me Tricky Dicky. I would take that as great honour. Remember, that's what we used to call Nixon, Tricky Dicky. Fine. Of course, and then they have these incredibly humorous jokes, you know, so clever, play on words, you know, Dicky is a dick. Right. Okay. My grandfather was called Dick. He was a lovely man. Okay, that's the dog the neighbours who hates me being in my garden, but hope they stop. Right. So that was an odd, I think that was Deb Roberts. If she watches this, maybe she can write in the comments if it indeed was her, because she was visiting Thirlwell, of course, because she's a serial killer, witch, junkie, and she was there throughout all the trial, of course, and now she's addictively there at all the Thirlwell things, and so she even dared to, seems to expose herself to us decent people outside. Right, and in the distance at some point there was somebody was sort of lurking around at the corner of the next building, started heckling us, scumbags, and it was like I don't know, a football supporter, I suppose. I mean, of course there are lovely football supporters. I'm a Spurs supporter actually, but never been to one of their matches, but I understand football supporters and enjoying a good match of football too, and cheering on your team, of course. Anyway, this guy seemed to be a yobbo and just shouted out scumbags and ran away. I mean, some people started moving towards him. Some of the people with filming the thing turned their video cameras to him. So maybe he's been caught on some documentaries or I don't know, TV or whatever. And then he reappeared at the other corner of the building, having presumably gone all the way around the other side of the town hall to lurk at the corner again. Now, yeah, this led to some more unpleasant things, because later everybody knew and were told that we demonstrators, if we wanted to, were going to be gathering later at that pub of that horrible chain, Wetherspoons, right? Okay, where I enjoyed, as I did, and again enjoyed an Aberdale, Green King Aberdale. Oh, it's a lovely beer. And so we were sitting there at a table, and some of us had our placards with us, and one or two of us were actually wearing, like guy was wearing like a yellow, one of those yellow overall things which workers on roads wear. Yes, gilets jaunes. Remember the yellow jacketed people in France demonstrating, whatever it was. So somebody was wearing one of those sort of fluorescent yellow over things with Lucy Letby's innocent or something, or should be free, written on it. And somebody had a t-shirt with something similar printed on it, and there were a couple of placards, and they were just sort of propped up, leaning against the backs of the chairs of the people sitting on the chairs. And at some point, some really nasty, big, hefty football supporter types got angry and started kicking at the placards, and this led to the persons who they belonged to, standing up and say, "Stop doing that." And then some of the staff of Wetherspoons got involved and actually started trying to eject some of the demonstrators. I don't know if Wetherspoons has a rule that you're not allowed to be a demonstrator, or you're not allowed to carry placards in there. Well, I sort of understand why it could spoil the atmosphere in a cozy pub if there are people there with carrying demonstration placards. But I don't know, free Palestine or whatever. Sack the government. Okay, so and actually, the horrible thing was how these hefty, nasty-minded, evil jobs, youngish, were actually attacking frail old people. A frail old man and a frail, not terribly old, but yeah, well, she looked pretty frail actually. I mean, an older lady, clearly old age pensioners, and sort of small, frail looking people. They were being targeted. I mean, they didn't target me. Well, my wife thinks I'm frail, and that was why she didn't want me to be there. Exactly because of these things. So they went out. So a couple of demonstrators basically were forced to leave by Wetherspoon's personnel, who did nothing to defend them from the people who were attacking them. And Mark Mays went out too, because he was standing up for the other ones. So, and he decided to accompany one of them to their hotel, because they sort of leaving in tears. Really, it was shocking. It was disgusting. It was disgusting. Wetherspoons, shame on you. Shame on you. Please instruct your staff to behave compassionately when old age pensioners who have been at a demonstration are attacked by the kind of yobs, which apparently your pubs also attract. Yeah. Well, and so Mark Mays went out, and then later he was actually attacked in the street by another of those guys. And he later came back to us extremely shaken. Fortunately he's sort of healthy and young and strong enough to fight back, so maybe his attacker got as good back. But Mark was incredibly shocked, and he sat down again with us after some hours later, utterly shaken, and all the time looking out to see if the bad guys were coming back again to get him and us. And I was very worried too. I stayed in the pub till it was dark, so it would be safe. And that's a beautiful butterfly. It's is it a fritillary? Oh, lovely. If it would stop, I would be able to tell you what it is. It's sort of orange. Smallish. I suppose it's a fritillary of some kind. I find it, beautiful. Lovely. Okay, but now it's hiding somewhere. Right. Okay, I'm up to 42 minutes now. So let me see if these were... I wanted to tell you my experiences somehow, and on the whole event was heartwarming. It was so lovely to be with a crowd of people, all of the same mind. Okay, I mean, it's like a crowd of football supporters of the same team, right? All of one mind. And we did the chants, okay, and we did some chants, and there was beautiful, beautiful speeches. There were some lovely speeches, in particular Carl Perkins, and also by, I think, 3 doctors, and also by one of the nurses. Wonderful speeches, beautiful speeches, not too long, very heartfelt and powerful. Small speeches. There was an extremely moving speech by a Ukrainian refugee, young woman. Her English was good enough, well done, and she joined us. She knows about injustice, right? Yeah, she knows about injustice and how you must fight it. And now she was a refugee in our country, and she was so glad she could be here. And it's shocking for her to see that in England there can be such injustice too. Okay, kind of different scale, but that one can have, yeah. It was a beautiful, beautiful speech, absolutely heartfelt and lovely. Okay, and I met lots of wonderful people, people I know a bit, and managed to chat with some of them. I've already said that. And Liverpool is a great place. It's got a real great, there's the butterfly again. It's got such a life to it, and it's got its own character, which is so strong, and it's powerful. It's vibrant, and it's not the southeast of England. Okay, look, like parts of the southeast of England are fine, but this is Liverpool. This is like a different race, and people speak their minds. Yeah, I feel so happy every time I'm in Liverpool. Well, I also feel so happy every time I'm in London, and I was happy the next day and the previous day when I'd briefly been in London too. But I don't need to talk about that now. Right, did some filming with Anouk Curry down by the Mersey, and some guy came up and asked us what we were doing, and we said we were filming. Yes, and now I see the butterfly. I could show it to you. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you've seen it. What is it? Is that a comma? I think it's a comma butterfly. Wow, a bit early for commas, I would have thought. Anyway, lovely. I wonder if I caught it on my film. We'll see. I will see anyway, and you will see. Yeah, some guy was standing there, not doing much. It's an older guy, not terribly old. And he came over and asked us what we were doing, so we told him. And at first he was sort of surprised. He had heard about Lucy Letby. He thought she was a witch. It was good she was in jail. Don't think he was really aware of the third world inquiry going on in his own town. Wasn't particularly interested. And we told a little bit about it and who we were and what we were. And he sort of congratulated us for what we were doing and said, "Go on, yes." He felt our sincerity, authenticity, and that we were doing something which we felt very strongly about, and we felt very strongly that an injustice had been done and needed to be corrected. And he basically applauded us. "Go on, mates, yeah, keep it up, right, good luck." Lovely in Liverpudlian. So there was also that, yeah. Right, now I'm up at 48 minutes and 11 seconds, so I think I can stop here and have a look at it later. I'm especially inquisitive whether or not I caught the comma butterfly and I want to get back to my green Veltliner, which I think I told you about earlier. Okay.